It was an exciting, crazy, and chaotic Sunday sports day yesterday. So let's get after it. And we'll quickly start here with the NFL. Winners and losers. So we'll start here with the winners from yesterday. I'm grouping two together here. The teams that took down the unbeatens. That's got to be the Broncos and Patriots. Both of these teams showed serious competitive character. I love that. The teams that can come back, that when they're faced in a deficit in the end of the game. The Broncos came back down 14 points in the fourth quarter, and they really shut down the Eagles' running game with Saquon in ways that we haven't seen anyone do this season. They held Philly under 50 yards, both Hurts and Saquon together, which is the lowest mark they've had all season, and they got over 100 with J.K. Dobbins, which I had J.K. Dobbins on my fantasy team, actually traded him for Michael Pittman. You can clown me in the comments if you want, but I needed the receiver help, particularly more than the running back help. I've already pretty stacked at that position. Another winner is the Patriots there. They finally threw the ball well, and their defense looked very strong. The Bills still ran the ball decently well statistically, but if you watch the game, it would have felt very different from every other Bills game this season so far. They held them to season lows, and they held Cook under 4 yards a carry. So it was just really, really a strong defensive effort, as well as Drake May looked comfortable in kind of the game managing position. He wasn't tasked to really win them the game, but he was tasked to control the flow of the game and throw the ball downfield. Diggs went over 100 yards again and looked really comfortable as the number one. I need to start him next week in fantasy. He sat on my bench this week. Oops, but we still got the win. The boys still got the win. And yeah, Josh Allen was the leading rusher. He still hurt you with his legs. That's what Josh Allen does. But really the defense just picked up some turnovers, and that was the difference. The Commanders are also a winner in my book. They got Jaden Daniels back from injury, and he looked really strong again. Jaden Daniels, the way he plays is winning football, and you kind of see that because the Commanders were able to really balance their offensive attack. They ran for 2 touchdowns over 100 yards. They passed for nearly 250, and McLaurin's still not back yet. So Deebo Samuel's been the leading guy. McLaurin's been shaky. I also have him on my fantasy team, but he needs to come back eventually, and hopefully once he gets back from injury, he'll be a consistent and contributing member of this team. But they stomped the Chargers. It was 27-10, not particularly close. I also have to throw my sweet Carolina Panthers into the winners column. We picked up another win. It was against the Dolphins. Yes, I understand. But it's big because you avoid being last in the division. The difference between 2-3 and 1-4 is very significant. And the playoff odds also speak to that. They flashed a graphic during the game. I think it's a 20% chance to make the playoffs at 2-3, and it's a 5 or 8% chance at 1-4. Not saying the Panthers are going to make the playoffs, but in a weak division, they've already beat the Falcons. I think they'll be able to beat the Saints. It's them kind of, they're going to be fighting up there with the Bucs. They stomped the Falcons the first time, so I'd love to see that one again. But Bryce Young led a fourth quarter comeback, no surprise, continuing on from his Alabama days, and they really established the run with Dowdle, who the Carolina kid, Rico Dowdle, he actually played at a rival high school to mine, and he ran for 200 yards in this game with Chupa Hubbard out. He looked really, really strong, and not that you care about the Panthers at all, but I do, and I loved it. So let's get on to the losers. The first has got to be the Chargers. They've dropped back-to-back games against solid opponents. The Commanders certainly better than the Giants, but it's really tight in the division now. You've got the Broncos who won, who are 3-2. You've got the Chiefs who are probably going to win tonight, who are 2-2. And now the Chargers are 3-2. Arizona's right behind there at 2. The Raiders are behind in the back. But the top 3 are really tight. And this is going to matter a lot to win the division. You've really got to play well against your division competition. And their offense has been wavering. It's been shaky the past few weeks. So I know it's early season. There are a lot of surprising things that happened this week, but we just have to talk about it. Another team is a loser is the Ravens. Of course, they're without Lamar. Injuries, banged up in a bit. Derrick Henry finally scored, but boy, this team's defense looked atrocious. The Texans scored 40 points on them, and I saw a story that they were going after some free agent guys walking the street, and they refused to play for the Ravens, some defensive guys. It's a disaster over there in Baltimore. I didn't expect the defense to fall apart this quickly, but that's a serious concern, and this division is kind of chaos. You got to love Aaron Rodgers emerging out of the fire as the most consistent and reliable quarterback in the division, with everyone else hurt. Also got to throw the Cardinals into the loser category. If you didn't watch any NFL football this weekend, you should watch the highlights from the Chargers-Titans game. This is one where I think the Chargers were favored by 10 points or so. I bet the Titans to cover the spread, and they pulled off one of the most improbable comebacks in NFL history. It was Amari DeMercado dropped. He fumbled the ball, and it got poked out, but he didn't protect it. This is another 1-yard line fumble play that continues to happen in the NFL, I guess. And it ended up being Titans ball. They scored, and then they came back and they were driving. I think it was Ridley or someone else fumbled the ball, and then the ball bounced into the end zone and another Titans player fell on it. Just an unbelievable comeback. I don't know how these things keep happening every year. And of course the Titans deserve credit, but for the Cardinals, they're also in a really stacked division. And theirs is even potentially more stacked than the Chiefs over there in the NFC West. It's the Rams, the Seahawks, the 49ers, all looking really strong right now. The Seahawks put on an offensive clinic and got unlucky with the interception deflection off of the Levante David's helmet at the line of scrimmage. But you're in a really stacked division, and the Cardinals, they're going to have some serious problems. If this is how they're trying to close games, they've been shaky closing games all year. They almost let the Panthers come back, and they're going to really have to shore up some of the defensive play. Let's move on over to the college side. I know there was no college football yesterday on Sunday, but the AP poll did come out. And I will say this is the first AP poll that I somewhat agree with. Start down here at the back. Florida State dropped to 25. They dropped 7 spots from 18 after the loss to Miami. But most importantly, Penn State and Texas are not in the poll. Finally we can agree. I told you last week I thought Penn State and Texas should be ranked in the teens. I didn't like any of their wins. I think Penn State doesn't have a Power 5 win. They're not in the rankings. Texas also is not in the rankings. And I finally agree. South Florida is sticking in there at 24. Looking ahead, Iowa State, they fell 8 spots. I didn't talk about them in their loss to Cincinnati because I didn't watch the game. But they did lose, and they dropped to 22, but they're still in the rankings, and of course, being in the Big 12, they're still going to be able to compete for the Big 12 spot there with Texas Tech, who looks really strong, who we'll get to in a second. Arizona State back in the rankings, jumped up 4. I know they're 4-1. They lost to Mississippi State. Mississippi State was not ranked last week after they were 4-1. Again, not totally with the consistency. Vanderbilt dropped 4 spots. Honestly, I would have left Vanderbilt exactly where they were. I think they were pretty fairly ranked. I understand dropping them, but dropping them below a Virginia team that barely won in overtime against Louisville and is also one loss, I think Vanderbilt's loss is better, and also they have better wins. So, whatever. You can't always win. The committee doesn't like Vanderbilt, and we get that. Jumping ahead, got BYU undefeated, Illinois at 5-1, back to 17. They're back into the top 20. The committee loves Illinois. Any reason for them to jump them up? They scored 40 points and allowed nearly 30 against Purdue. Allowed nearly 30 points, yes, against Purdue. And I know that they beat USC last week, but this team is shaky, and they should not be ahead of top 20 right now. They got absolutely steamrolled a few weeks ago. So I'm not ready to jump them into the top 20. Notre Dame back at 16. The committee loves them as well. I know they're 2 loss, and I'm certainly biased. I think they looked really good, but it looks really good for their chances as a 2-loss playoff team if they're already at 16, jumping Illinois, jumping Virginia and Vanderbilt and other teams. It looks really solid. Continuing on, Michigan's there at 4-1. Michigan will play USC this week, so that's an exciting game. Missouri jumps up 5 spots as well, just staying undefeated. They were on a bye this week, but just moving up a little bit. Georgia Tech up to 13. I can agree with that one. I think that's justified, although I would still have them borderline in the top 10. Tennessee at 12, LSU at 11. LSU is too high. LSU is way too high. If you're going to have Vanderbilt at 20, you should have LSU below them. Georgia at 9, Texas Tech at 10. I agree with most of the rest of these. Oklahoma dropped 1 spot after they beat Kent State. And yeah, just looking ahead at the rest, everyone just moved up spots with Texas and Penn State falling as they lost, of course, yesterday. And Alabama's up, Indiana, Oklahoma is down 1. But the big thing is Miami jumped up to 2. They jumped Oregon as well, which I can agree with. Just because I think Miami played a really good game, and they look like one of the most complete teams to me in college football. So I would have had no problem with moving Miami up to number 2. Ohio State doesn't have a ranked win, and I would like to see them prove more before they're up to number 1. Miami right now has 2 really quality wins. Actually, 3 really quality wins. 3 ranked wins right now. Beat South Florida, beat Florida State. They beat Notre Dame, of course, and they've also beat Florida. They've got much better wins than Ohio State, and I want resume rather than just future proving. The last story I want to quickly cover is ex-quarterback and broadcaster, the butt fumble man himself, Mark Sanchez, was arrested this week. Actually, I think it was yesterday morning for attacking a drunk driver. And the situation was, the story that I read, he was absolutely hammered, intoxicated, running sprints down an alleyway. And a truck driver tried to back in the car. Sanchez confronted him, of course, completely intoxicated, not in a good state of mind. And the guy was threatened as Sanchez wouldn't back away, and pepper sprayed him as Sanchez kept approaching. And then Sanchez continued, looking like some sort of rabid beast, was what the description said. The guy pulled out a knife from his car and stabbed him multiple times. And it still took Sanchez a few seconds before a look of shock came over him, showing just how gone he was from the situation. And I gotta say, I mean, as someone that appreciates sports and works in sports media myself, it's pretty shameful to see someone, a broadcaster and an ex-player, acting like this right before he was supposed to be broadcasting. I think he was supposed to do the Monday night game or another game this weekend, and he was just arrested instead. It's a crazy story. I think the guy was completely acting in self-defense, and while some articles might misconstrue it as Sanchez was stabbed, no, it was completely his own fault for putting himself in the situation that occurred. So just a crazy story to put out. He barely remembers it upon testimony, and it looks like his position, he's been momentarily suspended from broadcast work. He should be fired altogether with disorderly conduct like this. But it is what it is, and I hope that future broadcasters can continue to set a better example. Of course, we don't see the people that are acting with high character, but we see the ones that aren't. And there's enough ex-players, enough people in media every year that act with just poor intentions or get brought up in bad situations that it's hard for me to support a lot of these people in mainstream platforms that consistently get hired and then consistently make more public mistakes. So there are my thoughts on that. And tomorrow we'll have my NFL top 10. We'll have some more stories. We'll probably cover some baseball tomorrow. I apologize for no baseball. I've been busy with all the other sports, and the VPN Surfshark I can only get on so many games watching here from South America. So doing my best out here, but we'll get some more coverage coming soon, and I'll see you tomorrow.